Today on Locked On Red Wings, the top 3 reasons why Detroit could make the playoffs.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for The Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scott is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And on today's episode, guys, Scotty and I are going to give you our top 3 reasons why Detroit will make the playoffs. It's 3 separate reasons for each of us. We don't know what each other's reasons are, so there might be some overlapping. But going into, the Prospects tournament starts on Thursday, so we figured now would be a great time to really start looking ahead and looking at the season as a whole and what to expect. Now, that would also mean tomorrow we're going to do 3 reasons why Detroit might not make the playoffs. Basically, best case, worst case scenario for the season, if you really want to boil it down. Scotty, happy Wednesday.
Thanks, man. Yeah, nice little September Wednesday here. I just wanted to be known that in the exact time it took to play our intro video, I got up, sprinted to my fridge, grabbed my water that I forgot, and got back in time. I'm a little out of breath, but I did make it in time. And I just want to really throw out there that athletic feat.
We all know that you are just a machine. Just
an absolute unit.
Yes, without a doubt. Let's hope that translates to the podcasting game as we embark
it rarely
on
does, but
25 to 30-minute episode regarding our Detroit Red Wings. But Scotty, how would you like to lead us off? What is your, I guess we'll say, number 3 reason why the Detroit Red Wings might make the playoffs this year?
Sure. Well, I didn't rank them. So number 3, number 3, but I don't even know. I guess I could think, I don't know if I can put them in any order, but I have a pretty clear cut top 3 though. My first one is going to be the goaltending doesn't look like it has for the last 2 seasons. And I'm very, very aware that one of yours is probably in the same boat. I think if we asked anybody listening to do their 3 biggest reasons, I would find it very hard to believe that to some extent, one way or another, one shape or form, another analogy, that goaltending would not be on their list. It's been something that the last several seasons has just continued to be either pieced together at best or just at one point in the season completely spiraled out of control. And last year was obviously kind of worst case scenario in that regards. I mean, we were talking about having one of the going into last season. You and I were like, oh, we have, not the best or anything, but one of the better goaltending duos out there. Look at this, with Ned and the acquisition of Ville Husso. And Husso was great for the first half of the season, struggled in the second half, and Ned didn't even make it to I don't think he even made it to Valentine's Day. He was done by the early part of the calendar year. So I think that I'm not even asking for, elite Vezina caliber goaltending. I think that if they can just get through the year and the 2 guys that we have in place to get through the season are the guys that end the season because they don't have any serious injuries and they are performing well enough to stay in their current roles, I think that would go a long way. So it's not they need to be elite or anything, but if they can just be Husso can have a save percentage, back over 900, maybe creep up. We talked about him into that 905, 907 range. And then, Reimer presumed is going to be the 1B and the backup. And if he can be solid and revert back to where he was before this past season, then I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Well, it also helps too that if Reimer doesn't work out, that you don't have to go pick up a goalie off waivers like you did last year. Depth. They have Alex Lyon down there. So there are options back there. And I do expect, especially with a better defensive core, and that the goaltending will be better this year. I think Ville Husso will bounce back quite a bit. I think James Reimer will regress to the mean, which in this case means he will go back to being about a 905 save percentage backup goalie, 1B goalie, which is solid. And I don't think now it being better is great. I think that it is going to be a huge reason if the Red Wings do make the playoffs, but it's also hard to get much worse than how it was last year, especially down the stretch. It actually
and again, like, that's a testament to the team last year. Like, even with the disaster that was the goaltending, like they were not like completely out of it, in March even. So,
but if Ville Husso is a league average goalie around 908 save percentage, and James Reimer can be like 900 and 905, that's going to put them in a position where the Red Wings are going to be competitive most games, and that's desperately what they need over how it was last season, especially at the end of the last season. So yeah, I would agree with you. It actually wasn't one of my reasons.
Oh, good.
But that's only because I knew it was going to probably be one of yours. It was going to be, it'd be awkward if we both tried to predict what each other's were going to be. So we don't have a couple obvious options. I'll go with my number 3 option. I guess it's not ranked in particular, but I'm going to say Derek Lalonde is going to be a big reason why the Red Wings are going to make the playoffs, and not necessarily Lalonde himself, but his system. Last year, a lot of the growing pains came from the fact that it was the first year in a new system for every single player on that team. So, of course, there were going to be pains. There's going to be learning experiences. We did see the team take a step forward regardless. They went from, 74 points the year before to 80 points. The power play and penalty kills did get much better. They got into that, the power plays and penalty kills in particular, got into that range we were hoping, the teens range. But this year, it's going to be another step forward in this team system. Another defensive heavy year, a team that's trying to replicate the Tampa Bay Lightning styles. They want to stifle you. They want to suffocate you. And I mean, I think it's very possible that Derek Lalonde's system could really take root. And that's why it's one of my reasons. Him and his coaching staff, is, you look at the special teams again, could take another step forward as well, especially with the added depth. Like, this is Derek Lalonde himself is going to be a major reason the Red Wings will make the playoffs if they do.
No, I like that. That wasn't on my list, but I like it a lot. I think that, the system is something that we have. Say it again?
I said the system.
Yes. The system is something that we have talked about a lot over the last couple of years, right? Like, I mean, certainly you don't need to get pre-Lalonde anymore, but like when Lalonde was brought in, that was like the big thing. It was like, oh, the system. Like, we drove that point home. A lot of other media outlets drove that point home. Like, that was a really big talking point. And you saw a lot of players. Now, I don't think too many players are going to come out and like bash it if it sucks, right? It would have to be really bad for them to just be like, this is awful. But seeing them and hearing guys like Larkin and whatnot say like, yeah, like the system's really simple, but it's effective. We like it. We're kind of adjusting to it. And it's weird that to me that the season kind of played out the way it did. Like, that's why they play the games. But like, a lot of times when you have a new system implemented, it's a slow start. And then as the season goes along, everybody gets comfortable and you pick up a little bit. The Wings got off blazing last year, right? They got off to a fantastic start early on. And then like reality kind of caught up with them slowly throughout the year. So I think that a full season of that is a great point, and one that, if his system is, a winning caliber system, I think to your point, like the personnel is in place now where that should be able to be utilized.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue on our top 3 individual reasons why the Red Wings might make the playoffs this year. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Jase Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about our top 3 reasons why we believe the Red Wings will make the playoffs. You know, our top 3 biggest factors that'll play into their situation this year if they were to make it. And of course, like I said, that means tomorrow we'll be doing the top 3 reasons why they might not make the playoffs. What could go wrong? So this is a best case situation type thing we're talking about. In segment 1, we mentioned Derek Lalonde and the improved goaltending depth. Scotty, is it all right if I lead off segment 2 here? Since
of course, yeah. I was going to ask that you do. I let off one,
So this is a little bit of a cop out, and it does include one you've listed already. But for me, it was depth overall. When I was thinking about what to talk about for the reasons why this team could make the playoffs, it was hard for me to pinpoint goaltending, defense, or forward depth because they all got addressed. Now, people will argue about the quality of which it was addressed, but there is no denying that at every single position, every single line, this team got deeper and this team got better thanks to the moves that Steve Yzerman made this offseason. You know, the acquisition of Daniel Sprung, the acquisition of JT Compher, obviously Alex DeBrincat. You know, on defense, you got Jeff Petrie, you got Justin Hall, again, James Reimer. Like, these are all guys, Ghost Despair. Like, these are all guys who make the Red Wings better, objectively better than they were last year. Now, you can have your own thoughts and emotions to the contracts that were dealt out to these players and exactly how big of an impact you expect these players to have on the team with those contracts that they have signed. But it is hard to argue with the fact that this team is now better with these players on it than they were last year. And so I think that the added depth, the added scoring prevention is going to go a long way to make this team a lot better.
I think that's a great one. I think that, you know, we talked so much throughout the second half of last season about just getting more scoring, right? Like we weren't picky. Position didn't matter. Type of scoring didn't matter, you know, whether it was like a gritty guy in front of the net or whether it was a finesse, you know, shooter or a, you know, it didn't power shoot. Like it didn't matter, right? Like if we just, they desperately needed someone else or more people in general that can put the puck in the back of the net. And I think that you know, like DeBrincat's obviously the big ad and the easy guy, you know, with 40 goal potential on the roster now, but they really did raise the floor, right? Like they raised the scoring floor of this team. The ceiling, we'll see. And they tried to raise it by bringing in Cat. Like that's obviously the biggest reason to address that, or the biggest way to address that. But the floor of the scoring was raised by all 16 trillion of these depth signings that the Wings had this offseason. And so I completely agree. I think that, you know, DeBrincat's going to do DeBrincat things. Larkin, we about know what he's going to do at his peak. You know, plenty of people have arguments about what Raymond's going to do. Like the top 6, the top line guys, we kind of know what they're going to provide scoring wise. Whereas, you know, the rest of the team in the bottom 6 is, you know, you need goals from there too. And I think that they did a great job addressing that. So I agree.
Yeah. That's the depth is just when you get screwed over as hard as you do every single year in the draft lottery. And, you know, you don't have that young guy in the system to begin with when you take over a rebuild and you have like just nothing in the cabinets. You know, you got to make do with what you got. And Steve Yzerman has done that. And he's gone out there and addressed the needs as he saw fit through free agency. It's not the ideal way, but he has done it. And we will obviously see how big of an impact these guys have. And that's why I say if the Detroit Red Wings make the playoffs, that depth is going to be a huge reason as to why. That's why it's if they make the playoffs, not well. Scotty, what's your second reason?
My next, you know, I was debating whether I wanted to clump like 2 groups together and kind of cheat a little bit, but I feel pretty confident in just splitting the bill and just saying one of them. I will say that the power play alone, I was going to cheat a little bit and say special teams, just because, obviously they're kind of talked about in the same breath and they're both important, and we're trying to improve both sides and we made signings to improve both. But I'm fairly confident in the PK improving at least a little bit, whether it becomes, like a top 10 PK unit or anything. That's obviously yet to be seen, but I do have faith that it's going to get better, and I'm not too worried about it. The power play, not that I'm worried about it, I just think there's a lot of variance still there. And we just talked about scoring, and we talked about players that are going to come in and address the goal scoring, especially on the power play. But I think that is so huge in the same conversation that we kind of just had with depth, where it's like they did go out and address it, and they did go out and bring in players that are supposed to help in that area. And if they go out there and they put up a similar like power play production to last year, I think that they're probably going to be in a little bit of trouble. But if they take that expected leap, and again, with somebody like DeBrincat now on the team, it could even be a substantial leap, right? Like you're talking about a group where, like we expect the penalty kill to get a little bit better. The power play could be a lot better. It could really take a big jump forward if everything is firing on all cylinders, and you get the best version of Raymond, you get the best version of DeBrincat, you get the best version of Larkin stays healthy all year. Like you could be talking about a really dynamic unit. And so, and I mean, even on the blue line, right? Like you obviously have Sider, but now you have Ghost. Like he's going to be a huge power play threat as well. Like there's a lot of potential for this power play unit to take a big step forward. And I think that if it was to take a huge leap forward, that would probably be a really, really impactful attribute to a Red Wings playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an extension of the Derek Lalonde conversation we were just having, too. I mean, the degree of separation between the Red Wings being a top 20, 18th on penalty kill, 17th on power play last year, and being a top 10 on both of those is 2%.
Right.
If this power play and penalty kill can get 2% better, they will have been a top 10 power play and penalty kill team. And now that just shows you how close knit that 18 to 10
the middle pack
was.
Yeah.
But if that can get that much better with the guys they brought in, like Daniel Sprong and Shane Ghost Despair, JT Compher, on their respective lines, and then, a full season of Wallman and Sider, that would be hugely impactful to them making the playoffs. Like this is the type of team, and this is what's kind of scary about this Red Wings team. And we've talked about it a lot, and you just mentioned it, in fact, too, is like the ceiling versus the floor with this team.
Yeah.
There's so many new faces on this team this year that it's hard to tell where the ceiling and where the floor is at. Like these new faces, new blood, especially with the arrival of maybe a few of these highly touted prospects that would have to beat out some guys in camp. Absolutely. I mean, this team could go from an 80-point team to a 92-point team or something along that lines if everything goes according to plan. Things rarely do go according to plan. Worst case scenario, all of these free agent signings the Red Wings have made are exactly what people have said they are, which is middle of the pack, depth signings that, you filled out your team with better players, but none of those players are really impactful. And so your floor is like 84 points. You really only improved just a little, but not enough to make an impactful change in the standings in the Atlantic Division. So it's like, that's why we had this conversation, Scotty, last year, and it was a little bit, we could say things with a little bit more confidence, because even though we were ultimately slightly off base, I think we weren't completely wrong in everything that we said. The Red Wings just barely finished outside of where we wanted. In fact, they did meet some of the goals, but because this team is so fresh looking, like you don't recognize so many of these players, you made 10 plus acquisitions.
Yeah.
It's hard to make that prediction of getting 2% better on penalty kill and power play, especially with how tough this Atlantic Division is. That's what makes it so exciting, is this team is almost an unknown commodity this year going into it. They could be really freaking good, but they might also disappoint us. But us, ever the optimists, we're leaning on the side of they're going to be really freaking good.
I would agree. I would totally agree. And I think again, like the you mentioned it there, like 2% better. Like that seems very feasible. And that middle of the pack is so close in the difference between, like the 12th ranked and the 18th ranked, or the 11th ranked and the 20th ranked, right? It's not that much of separation, and but it goes a long way, and it adds up very quickly over the course of a full season. You think of how many times you're on the power play a game, right? 2% more over 82 games, multiple power plays a game, like that's going to add up really quick. So
Absolutely.
I'm I don't know, think confident is the right word, but I'm very optimistic about the heights that this power play unit can reach, and I genuinely do think that could be like one of the biggest reasons we look back at the end of the season and go like, this is why we took the big step forward.
Absolutely. We're going to take another quick break, and when we return, we are going to wrap up with segment 3. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are breaking down our top 3 individual reasons why we think the Detroit Red Wings are going to be playoff contenders this year. Scotty, I led off segment 2. Your turn to bounce back, leading off segment 3.
I think I went back and forth on this one too. I think that I kind of want to clump 2 players together. Like it's going to sound weird, but I think that specifically, we talked in general terms about the depth and about the goal scoring. I think the production specifically out of Lucas Raymond and Alex DeBrincat in a vacuum is going to be incredibly impactful for this hockey team. And I know that that's like kind of like picking and choosing. Like,
well, how about this? You pick Lucas Raymond and I'll pick Alex DeBrincat, because Alex DeBrincat was my final one.
Cool. It works great. So I think that if I'm going to focus on Raymond first, then I think that that there's, when looking at the big picture outlook of this team, and you're looking at lines in the future, you're thinking of, where are the goals going to come 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now? Where are the goals going to come on the Red Wings' next Stanley Cup run? I think a lot of people have penciled in Lucas Raymond to be not, like a 40 goal scorer or anything, but like a legitimate, like maybe 30 goal potential type of player, and someone that this team should be relying on to get production out of for the future. And I think we saw the flashes in year 1, and we saw, a couple of flashes, a couple of hot stretches in year 2 for sure, but we also saw the sophomore slump in year 2, right? And so
yeah,
I think that him going out there, he put on weight again. Like I'm not really reading too much into like how many pounds of muscle the kid has added over the summer, but like objectively, that is the thing that he needs to work on, and he did it. So if he can be that, again, like I'm not asking for like 40 goals, but if he can be a top 6, like shoe in for the top 6 for this team for the foreseeable future, and proves that this season and takes that big step forward, even if he doesn't hit 30, if he's back at like 25 goals, even, like 27 goals, like I think that's going to, again, like that's, what did he end last year with? 15, 17? Like
17
that's like
goals.
that, right? That's double digit improvement. Like that's 10, 12 goals that you didn't have last season. So I think that, we're talking about the depth, and we're talking about, like how much more is the new third line left winger going to score than last year's third line left winger, right? If you can get a 5 or 6 goal improvement from that, that's a big deal. Lucas Raymond is not a new player and has the ability and has the potential to add double-digit goals to where he was last season. That's crazy for an in-house, not even acquisition. That's just a natural bump. So not having to go outside to get that big of a bump is a big deal. And so I think that he is one where, again, you talk about ceilings and floors. That's like my favorite thing to do here. Like Raymond is one where of all the players on the team, he maybe has the biggest gap between the ceiling and the floor of what he can do this year. And I think that it's going to be, it's the whole world is not on one man's shoulders for a playoff team, but I think that his goal scoring production is going to be very, very important if this team wants to take that step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and we talked about it with our season preview of Lucas Raymond, like if this team is going to take a huge step forward, like, he has to become at least a 60-point player in my eyes, like consistently a 60-point player, whether that be 30 goals, 30 assists, or 20 goals and 40 assists, like somewhere along the line, he has to become a substantial part of this offense. I think he can do it. He got to 57 points in his rookie year. While I'm not putting all of my money on the fact that he gained weight this offseason, but I do think that is going to be, I think at the very minimum, that's a sign of how serious he is taking this and how he wanted to increase what was considered the weakest part of his game. So I think that, I think his floor is obviously 45 points, which isn't bad. But from a 4th overall pick, you need him to be at least 60 points. You need him to hit his ceiling. His ceiling could be as high as like 80 points, point per game player. But if you can find somewhere in the middle, be like a 60-point player, then that's going to be huge.
Right.
Now, on to the other guy, Alex DeBrincat. And, if we were doing numbers, if we were ranking these, this guy would be my number one reason, which is a little unfair. I will admit you shouldn't put all of your playoff hopes on one man. But let's say if we're being conservative, he is a 30-goal scorer with the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings last year in the 2022-2023 season, let me filter this again, just so make sure I had it at 5-on-5. I want to make sure I get this right.
Well, I can fill. He's a hockey player.
Thank you.
Did you see him throw out the first pitch of the Tiger game?
I did see that. Yeah.
That was good. And then they had him in the booth. They interviewed him. He seems like a cool kid.
The Red Wings finished 24th in goals for in 2022-2023 at all strengths, 237 goals. If you are conservative and give them another 30 goals off of Alex DeBrincat's stick, I say conservative because you would hope he gets to 40, but if you're being conservative and he gets to 30, that gets him to 267. That would bump them up to 14th. That put them at top half of the league in goals for. Right. That gives them the same amount of goals for as the Stanley Cup winning Vegas Golden Knights.
Right.
Vegas Golden Knights, they had all of their offense spread out and they played good defense. They didn't have a lot of really high point scores. Jack Eichel would have absolutely dominated if he had a full season. If you look at what he did in the games he did play, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
so you're saying if you prorated it?
If you prorated it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Alex DeBrincat, absolutely. If Alex DeBrincat can be a 30-goal scorer, this team becomes a top half of the league scoring team. If he can hit 40 again, he hits that ceiling. You add another 10 to get him to get the Red Wings to 277. That puts them at 10th in the league, just ahead of the Colorado Avalanche.
Right. And then again, and then back to my point as well. And then if you add 10 to 12 goals from Raymond, right? Like that's 2 players. Like that's 2 players that you're talking about. Adding a boatload of goals there, and them the Red Wings flying up the ranking.
And it just goes to show how important it is to have guys like top end level guys. The depth is just as important. But you need a lot of depth. Where really you need like 2 or 3 top level guys to, by comparison. So having Alex DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond, take that step forward back towards being like what he can be at his ceiling, and Alex DeBrincat a step back towards where he was when he played with the Chicago Blackhawks, will just where the depth could elevate you just above the normal, the mean, the average. These 2 guys can skyrocket you towards the top. So that's why, I don't think we're off base by saying these guys might be the biggest 2 reasons this team could make the playoffs. But again, none of these things we listed are guarantees. This is a subjective conjecture episode that we're doing because, again, we're not fortune tellers. And tomorrow's episode too, which might be a little bit of a downer because we're going to do the top 3 reasons for each of us why they might not make the playoffs.
And the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. By the end of the season, we'll probably look back and go, two of the things that on the best case scenario side happened, and 2 of the things on the worst case scenario side happened, and whatnot.
And they won the Stanley Cup.
Right. And it's all good. But no, I agree with you. DeBrincat, you brought him in for a reason. The biggest need this team had above goaltending, above depth, above anything was an elite high-end goal scorer. You extended him immediately. You have put your faith and put your money where your mouth is in this guy being the high-end goal scorer that you need for years to come. And if in year one he falls short of what is expected of him in that area, that's going to be a big letdown for obviously the fan base, but it's also going to be a lot of production that we are penciling in again as like when you just looked at the goal rankings and where the Wings fell, whatnot, like we're penciling him in for a certain amount of goals, and we're raising the Wings a certain amount of places because of him alone. And so if he wasn't to, produce that would obviously be a lot of goals that we are no longer going to get that we are planning on getting, and that would mean that the team would underperform expectations. So definitely a very, very big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to also remember the Red Wings didn't lose a lot of offense in the offseason.
Right.
Obviously, you traded away Dominic Kubalik, who I think had 20 goals. Trying to remember off the cuff, which is not.
I think exactly 20
is not a non-substantial amount of goals. But if DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond themselves can just, be what we need them to be in this best case scenario, that'll offset whatever we lost from Dominic Kubalik. Because Kubalik should have never been in a position, to score that many goals. It just goes to prove how much the offense struggled last year. I'm happy that he did, and I loved him when he was here. Not trying to throw shade at Dominic Kubalik, but realistically, he's a third or fourth line guy.
Yeah, Dominic Kubalik should not be one of your highest goal scorers on your team if you're going to be good. Like, that's just objectively true. That's the dog forever. But, and
you might have replaced it with Daniel Sprong's 20 goals. So
right. Yeah, exactly. So I agree with you. And that's why I wanted to clump them together so bad, because I just the variance in how much different this offense looks when those two are going to be at their peak versus when those two are at their floor is substantial.
Absolutely. Scotty, that about does it with my thoughts for today. You got anything else?
I don't think so, man.
Go Lions.
How about them Lions, baby?
We didn't get a chance to talk about them because I was in Cancun all weekend. So
how about them Lions?
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Now, if they can just have Seattle come to town and absolutely put a stomp on them, that'll really get the confidence going.
I think so. I can't wait to see how loud Ford Field is.
That's going to be crazy. I'm so excited to watch that game. What am I doing? I hope I'm home to watch that. I got to go up north to get the boat out of the water, help my grandparents out this weekend. So
nice.
Hopefully I'll be home on Sunday to watch that football.
Getting the boat
game
out of the water past Labor Day, man. You're a bold man.
A bold man.
So true. You said it, not me.
It was sitting right there. I couldn't resist.
Yeah, low hanging for sure.
All right, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We got to do last week a 3 a week. We're going to backload it for you guys. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, for us, we basically just took the first 2 days off so that now we're just on every day again from here on out. That's pretty much where we're at. So yeah, man, next week back to the old 5 days a week, which means hockey's in the air. So Prospects tourney this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the beacon, like the bat symbol.
Bat symbol? You mean bat signal?
Signal, the bat signal for hockey's back.
Hell yeah, baby. All right. Well, we will talk to you guys tomorrow then. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day. Are you going to play that?
I almost forgot to play it.
That was crazy.